Hello everyone and welcome to Lush and Salty Aquariums. My name is Stefan. Thank you so much for coming to my channel and supporting me in this wonderful hobby, just as I enjoy supporting all of you. What a fun way to while away our time on planet Earth, creating our own little Earths, our own little ecosystems. Before I get into some kooky tangent, we're at my Algae Cinescaper. This is their 20-gallon kit, now available in the United States. It's a beautiful glass box, and it comes with an incredible cabinet that has a lot of nifty features. But I don't really want to pimp that right now. I want to talk about this aquarium. I had hesitated to make a video of it at this point. I wanted to wait for some of those stems in the back to grow out. But there's a couple things going on that I really wanted to show to you guys because it's fun animal behavior. But first, I'll give you an overview of the tank. As I said, it's a 20-gallon classic size. And in the back there, the super red plant is, no coincidence, called the Livestock Super Red Mini. And I look forward to it bushing out and covering that space another few inches, and we'll be really good to go there. I've got Rotala Wallachia right there in the center. It's a more fragile plant than I had hoped, honestly. I was looking for a slightly more bushy vibe from it, but it looks great, and hopefully it'll fill out that little blank space between the super red and itself. And then over here I have Livestock repens, and I think this is the straight up repens and not the ovalis or another strain. Those need to grow up too. So a couple weeks ago I had pulled all of these plants and redid them just from the tops and got rid of all the undergrowth. A lot of times once a plant adjusts to your aquarium from its emerged form to submersed, the whole bottom part is kind of janky, and that's what was going on here. And I could have left it and nature would have corrected itself, but I pulled all the plants and just replanted the tops. So now I've got nice growth from top to bottom as opposed to funky kind of dead stalks at the bottom. The only downside is, if it is a downside, and it really isn't, because in a couple weeks it'll be a moot point, but I've got all this empty real estate up top here, and I don't want to put any floaters beyond this Brazilian pennywort because that'll block the light, and these stems need it to stay red and to grow tall. Now this green plant here, most of you recognize Lemonphilia sessiflora, the fastest growing stem plant in the hobby, and I've culled that back to just this small portion to the left hand side. And on the right hand side, I'm going to move my position a little, another super fast grower right there in the corner. That is Pogostem and Octopus. Now those plants used to dominate this aquarium, not just on the left and right hand side, but pretty much half and half. And I wanted some red and I wanted to play around, and so I've trimmed back both of the fast growing green stems. They will overtake in terms of growth rate all three of those plants, the super red, the Livestock repens, and the Wallachia. But my guess is they will be at the top before those are, even though they're lower to the ground now. I've got a carpet here that needs to be trimmed. It's mostly Helanthum, Tellum, and perhaps some dwarf hairgrass in there, a little bit of Christmas moss fronds, and maybe a few other things. And once it's trimmed, it will look like a golf course putting green. It's a little bit funky now, but you trust me, and if you look at older videos, you can see. Now, because I can't avoid it, this is one of the things I wanted to show you. There's a little pocket here. Maybe I pulled some moss too vigorously and it left a cave. But look at these Bloody Mary shrimp. They found it and they are down in there. They're taking advantage of untouched territory, at least more or less untouched, that maybe they couldn't navigate with this intense thick growth. And they immediately find that area and start working on all the little biofilm and algae that had collected down there, and I think that's super cool, super fun. Baby shrimp will take advantage of this real estate all the time to stay alive in a community aquarium, but it's fun to see the adults down in there feasting. Now, speaking of shrimp, and I'll get back to this other plant growth, but I hardly have ever seen this behavior, and it's in a funky spot, so it's going to be hard to capture. But all of my Amano shrimp, look at them all, and those are big ones, Godzillas. It's kind of creepy, right? But they're all around the heater feasting on whatever it is they're feasting on. Now, here's my theory. I had just fed some flake food and other stuff to this tank, and because of where it's pushed by this lily pipe, and it goes around and goes this way, and then there it picks up the CO2, which is exactly what you want when you have CO2 in a high-tech tank, and that'll disperse it moving back along here. But that current, I believe, and excuse the bad camera work, has pushed all kinds of particle fish food into the crevices of this heater, and the Amano shrimp are just going nuts for it. That's all of them. I mean, there's like 11, you know, 8 to 12 shrimp, big Amano shrimp. They're all happy and healthy. It's not like they don't get plenty to eat in here, but I guess, I mean, it sort of reminds me of like a diner where everybody's, you know, having their lunch break at the office. I just thought that was crazy. Now, I don't clean much back here, so both inside or outside the tank, so that's why it's kind of gnarly looking. I mean, that's all the way in the back corner. But I thought this shrimp behavior, both from the Neocaridina down there and the Amano up there, was really, really fun, and I wanted to capture that for you. Back to the general tour of the tank, the mid-level, which I haven't covered. This is a new plant for me here. This is Hygrophila arugia, if I'm saying that right. Relatively new to the hobby, especially in other countries like Europe. This plant's very new, and it's relatively new for us. Most of that is the out of water variant from it, but when it changes or converts, if you have good light and CO2, it doesn't grow tall like a lot of Hygrophila. It can maintain a really low to the ground, bushy, and quite pink, red, and purple hue to the leaves, which is something I was looking for in a mid-ground / foreground plant to transition from these bigger, taller plants, which we'll get to the top. And I didn't want another plant that goes to the top here. Now, I've got a couple fronds of Hygrophila pinnifada, oh gosh, saying that particular plant name has just been a tongue twister for me, and I beg your pardon. But there's two to three, and that's it, stems between this Hygrophila arugia. I want to say arugula because, you know, I like to eat arugula, but that's not it. It's similar sounding. And the Pogostemmonoctopus, you can see the Hygrophila pinnifada. Oh God, boy, this has been a real word salad just now. Now, this particular plant can also grow as an epiphyte. In other words, it's relatively easy to train to grow along driftwood and rock, but this is what it looks like when it's more just a classic stem form. That's not to say it won't send out runners and start to try to go along the bottom and through that anubias, but for the time being, it has that really cool palm tree effect. It looks just like underwater palm trees, so I think that's badass, really cool. And then the Christmas moss on these wonderful magnetized holders that you can get on eBay or Etsy or Amazon. And I just wrapped some Christmas moss that I pulled, and that's how I got, for example, a clump out of there. And I move it up to here, and between that light and this flow from that lily pipe there pushing and the CO2, I mean, look at how awesome that is. Very little dead spots in there. Very little to apologize for when it comes to that fabulous fluffy ball of moss. And occasionally those Amano shrimp that are over by the heater, I usually see one or two up here taking a siesta and nibbling on the moss as they're wont to do, but for whatever reason they're back to the heaters. So the Anubias, when I did the 2.0 of this tank and torqued the light a little bit and added more stems and cleared out the top of floating plants for the most part, you see some Brazilian pennywort, which grows really fast, and so I literally break it in half once a week. But that extra light definitely took its toll on the slow growing Anubias, so you see all that green spot algae, and even perhaps worse, some worse degradation like there. And I knew that was going to happen, but you know, there's a lot of new growth that'll be more comfortable in the higher light, and I'm okay, you know, from 2 feet away it just looks terrific, and I like it. I would obviously love it to be free from that algae, and I'm working on it. And Lord knows I've got algae eaters in here, Otocinclus, nearite snails, even a couple longfin plecos. This is all Bucephalandra in here, all different kinds, and Anubias petite sort of in the center right there, right in the center of this camera shot. And then all kinds of different Bucephalandra plants, Godzilla, brownie, green wavy. I didn't care. I just looked for, I didn't care what species I was buying. I didn't want something that was super small or super big or super complicated. And the Bucephalandra actually can tolerate low light, but is more comfortable in higher light, and certainly appreciates flow, and in some respects it's better than Anubias in those conditions, but you know, typically bush plant. And there's a really cool purple species that's about ready to flower right there. And so I'm lining the purple and green Bucephalandra, or bouche, and then this wonderful crypt is the centerpiece, and it's somewhere down into the dragonstone, somewhere betwixt and between, as I like to say. And because of the conditions, it's got an intense red rust color, and I've pulled a ton of that out and cut a bunch of stems to get it into a manageable space. But let me show you, it's sent out runners. There's a little one way out there, that's the mother plant, and there's a leaf from that particular plant. And I will find others all the time, especially when I get to trimming that carpet in front, and I'll just chop that all down. And sometimes I just pull the whole plant out if I can, without creating a disturbance with the runner, you know, without having to pull like a rope from underground in your yard. I don't want to rip a trough into this aquarium. The albino longfin Coriodoras, there's a group of 6 in here, I think, 5 or 6. The stars of this tank. They're so unshy, unlike Coriodoras. These are bold and brash and just stunning fish. I did a whole video about them. They're crowd pleasers. Look at that. I mean, are you kidding me? Unbelievable. And I got a bag of 6 at a swap for like $12 or something. You know, they were tiny. You couldn't tell anything about them other than that they were albino Coriodoras. There's a mystery snail, and you see over time their shell starts to get a little bit funky with algae, and in lower pH and higher acidic aquariums, that shell will degrade and the creature can perish. Now I supplement with foods that have calcium in it, but even there, it's actually the water parameters that ultimately make a difference with the shell, in my opinion, because I've lost mystery snails even with the supplements. I've got some Bexford, red Bexford pencilfish. You see a few of them there. Some gold or brass tetras and some green neon tetras. All of them are playing the shy game, and as some of my regular viewers know, the green neons have always been reclusive no matter what I do. I mean, I've raised the substrate in the back, I've switched to these different, more see-through stem plants versus something that gets thick like that, and they just love to be back there no matter what the conditions are. I mean, green neon tetras are stunning, and they're my most favorite neon tetra from a looks standpoint versus the cardinal or the classic neon, but they're known for their shyness, their reclusivity, and there's at least a dozen in there, maybe more. They were the first fish I put in here, not including the cleanup crew. There are some pygmy Coreodoras in here, I'm sure, as well. I mentioned the Otocinclus and the long fin Plecostomus. I don't see the pleco, but I do see there's an Otto cat right there. There is the long fin pleco, you see? Now it's funny, whatever those Amanos are eating, I don't know that it's algae because it's not attracting anything other than them. In terms of like, where are the Ottos and where is this guy? He could easily interrupt that tea party and get him some, but he isn't. So when you look at this aquarium, you know, from a few feet away, it's starting to get to where I want it to be. Now we've gotten close and I've showed you some of the bugaboos, but once those background stems get to the top, and if I can, you know, manage some of that green spot algae on the Anubias, maybe cut a few of those leaves and let the newer, fresher growth take over, I think I'm gonna be in my happy place, and I think the aquarium will be in its happy place. Okay, everybody, thank you for watching. Let me know what you think. Have you seen your Amano shrimp behave that way? When, you know, not including on an algae wafer, just sort of finding a spot in the aquarium and calling it their own? 'Cause that's what they're doing there. Obviously, if I put an algae wafer in the center there, all kinds of creatures will come to it, but that struck me as different, not unlike this little Neocaridina clubhouse down here with these cherries. These, I mean, some of those aren't maybe grade Bloody Mary, but that's what the group started as anyway. Appreciate y'all. Keep your hands in the tank, albeit carefully. Ciao for now.